Drill, baby, drill. Here in California. I know you're probably thinking that's a crazy sentiment, but yes, it has come out recently. I don't know if you've heard this news, but there is a small little sentiment coming up, bubbling up through the California government. Maybe it's time to drill, baby, drill here in the state of California. Let's get right into that news story.
After fighting with the oil industry the past few years, Governor Gavin Newsom is considering new and some might say surprising action to keep the companies operating in California.
The state faces the threat of higher gas prices and tight gasoline supply as two major oil refiners are preparing to shut down within the next year.
KCRA 3 Capitol correspondent Ashley Zavala explains exactly what he's now weighing.
Facing the threat of higher gas prices and tighter gasoline supply, California leaders, including Governor Gavin Newsom, are now seriously considering boosting oil production in the state. In a letter to Governor Newsom, the vice chairman of his California Energy Commission included oil extraction in a list of recommendations to stabilize the state's supply. Siva Gunda wrote, quote, "We recommend that the state take action to achieve targeted stabilization of crude oil production in California to supply in-state refineries while ensuring that production is consistent with critical health and environmental protections."
That's not rolling back anything.
Governor Newsom has been on the front lines of California's push to move away from the use of oil and gas. When I asked about these recommendations, he did not say if he'll approve, but said he's reviewing them.
I'm not naive about the imperative of a transition that's rational and addresses nature of change and a lot of
Newsom, whenever he gets in sort of a tough question, if you ever notice this, he does his little shoulder dance. So whenever he gets uncomfortable, that's a telltale sign that Gavin is a little uncomfortable with the question.
Changed in the global markets, a lot of change in supply chains. A lot continues to change. We've got some challenges, and so it just requires some new considerations.
One of California's challenges, its reliance on foreign oil. The latest state data shows 63% of the state's fuel supply is coming from other countries, mostly in the Middle East and South America.
All right. I've brought this up on the show, and I always think it's worth repeating because of the hypocrisy regarding California Democrats who say that we can't produce oil and that we have to get away from oil, we have to get away from fossil fuels because it's bad for the environment, it's bad for climate change and all that stuff. Yet 63% of the oil that we get and we refine here is from foreign countries, which means that it has to be shipped on big ships that come here. And guess what those ships run on? Well, they don't run on solar and they don't run on wind or renewable energy. They run on fossil fuels and they get here by those big ships. And not even to mention the fact that these third world countries that are producing the oil that we are taking in, we don't necessarily know, one, the workers' conditions. We don't know the environmental impact of what they're doing in these foreign countries. But I guess if it happens thousands of miles away, those climate change infractions don't matter. But if we do it here in our backyard in California, like Kern County, that's bad. We can't do that. We can't produce the oil here. We have to get it from a foreign country thousands of miles away, which burns more fossil fuel to bring it here rather than create more jobs here in California.
From both sides of the aisle acknowledge the global conflicts could mean more challenges for the state's fuel.
The in-state producers in the state of California, they produce the cleanest oil and gas ever.
Republican State Senator Shannon Grove represents Kern County, where the state has well-established oil fields with several environmental regulations in place.
Right now, we're in a drastic situation. It's actually a catastrophic cliff, and that is not hyperbole. That is not something that's just to alarm people. We have two additional refiners that have announced closure. If we don't get them oil to produce and we don't take care of the situation that we have in this state regarding in-state production.
Grove says the governor and legislature need to seriously consider the California Energy Commission's recommendations and act fast to keep refiners in the state. I asked if those recommendations surprised her.
It's not about oil. It's not about in-state production. The CEC vice chair is trying to figure out how to keep gas prices low for all Californians. That's his goal.
At the state capitol, Ashley Zavala, KCRA 3 News.
Well, some other recommendations.
All right. So that's the update. They are now, I can't believe I'm saying this, the California state government is recommending some parts of, hey, maybe we should start producing more oil here. Maybe we should take it easier on the refineries. Maybe we should try to keep them here because gas prices continue to go up. And there's all this rumbling that we might be facing $8 to $10 a gallon gas sometime soon in the future. Here's some quick facts from the, I believe it's the EIA. Talks about California was the fourth largest total electricity producer in the nation. But the second point, in 2024, California was the eighth largest producer of crude oil among the 50 states. I'm surprised it's actually that high. That's also because we have a ton of oil here in California. Like Kern County, a lot of these places are sitting on a ton of oil. I'm going to get to that in a second. And the state ranked third for crude oil refining capacity, which, again, I'm surprised that we're third with the amount of refineries that continue to get shut down and pushed out of this state. Just for some more context, I did some more numbers. This is from the U.S. Energy and Information Administration. They estimated California has crude oil reserves of approximately 1.8 billion barrels, accounting for about 3% of the nation's total proven reserves. This includes both onshore and offshore reserves with major concentrations in the San Joaquin Basin, Los Angeles Basin, and along the Pacific coast. Now, this is even crazier to me. Total oil in place, including unproven technically recoverable resources, is much larger. So this is stuff that, it's not a well that they can identify and say, oh, here's a well of oil. There's stuff that they can do, and they can say, there's oil under here. It's going to take a little bit more to get to it. The Monterey Shale Formation alone is estimated to hold around 15 billion barrels of oil. Now, this is where it says that you do need some more heavy extraction methods, such as steam injections and stuff like that, which environmentalists are probably not going to go for, but 15 billion barrels of oil are sitting on the Monterey Shale Foundation or Formation. That is a ton of oil on top of the 1.8 billion barrels of oil that we already know are here in California. We're just not getting it out of the ground, and for some reason we're importing all of it from these foreign nations, these third world countries. He also talks about the fact that they know that California, well, actually, let me back up here for a second. He knows that gas prices are going to be either make or break for him in 2028, right? We all know that. Gavin Newsom's going to try and tell people that gas is not that bad in California. And he tried to do that just recently. In a tweet, he said, prices at the pump have gotten lower each day this week. Overall, the average prices are down nearly 3 whole cents from the beginning of the week and 20 cents from last month. Now, keep in mind, it's also gone up as of July 1st because of the excise tax that went into effect, and then the lower carbon fuel emission, that standard had gone to effect. This comes after Republicans present 6+ months of misleading Californians about a non-existent 65-cent jump in prices on July 1st. Instead, Californians have seen a consistent decrease, Monday to Tuesday decrease. Okay. Tuesday to Wednesday decrease. So he basically cites 1 week. Out of the entire sample size of California, he cited just this week and said, well, look, it's already gone down nearly 3 cents. Isn't that incredible? See, look, we're doing a great job. Now, obviously, we're here to fact check old Gavin Newsom. And this was as of today. This is an article. I looked this up right now. This came out today. Even before July 1st, California already had the highest gas tax and fuel costs in the country. As of late June 2025, fuel costs $4.62 per gallon in the Golden State, compared to a national average of $3.20. Baked into these prices are a slew of regulatory costs, including the state excise tax, the federal excise tax, sales tax, the low carbon fuel standard requirements, and costs associated with cap and trade. All in all, as of April 2025, the total burden of these regulations amounted to $1.25 per gallon, a staggering 27% of the total sticker price. So more than a quarter of what you pay in gas has to do with regulations and taxes. And that's not gaslighting. As much as Gavin Newsom wants to say that Republicans are gaslighting people to believe that there's this huge jump and this is, gas prices are going through the roof. Well, gas prices are expensive in California. But I think at the end of the day, this is really something that he knows could hurt him in 2028. Now, you got to keep in mind, next year is his last year as governor. He only has a certain amount of time left to make good on some promises so that he can kind of go into 2028 with his head held high, saying, I did X, Y, and Z in California, and it got better. So he has a small window. He's got to make some of these changes. And that's why he's backtracking on a lot of this stuff. And what's the golden rule about politicians is that they never like to admit that they're wrong. He doesn't want to admit that this is the guy who put into place the executive order that everybody should be in EVs and electric cars by 2035, which the one big beautiful bill just actually overturned and got rid of. For him to go back now and say, no, okay, maybe we should produce more oil here in the state. Maybe we should embrace fossil fuel. Maybe we should be a little bit more rational about it, is him kind of backtracking and admitting that he's wrong. But he also knows if he wants to run for president, these swing states, they're going to look at gas prices in California and go, I don't want those gas prices in my state. And if there's one thing that people always get upset about is gas prices, because it is sort of like a hidden tax for a lot of people. I did want to talk about this regarding the refineries. So the war on refineries since 2019, 4 oil refineries. Now this is since 2019, January 2019, when Gavin Newsom was sworn in as governor of California for his first term. 4 oil refineries have shut down or have announced closures, with 2 additional refineries under consideration for closure. So we have the Marathon Martinez refinery, ceased crude oil processing in 2020 and converted to renewable diesel production. Phillips 66 and Santa Maria refinery shut down in 2023 with operations shifted to renewable fuels at the Rodeo facility. Phillips 66 Wilmington refinery in Los Angeles announced closure by the end of 2025, representing about 8% of California's refining capacity. The Valero Venecia refinery announced closure by April 2026, accounting for roughly 9% of the state's refining capacity. And this is in addition, Valero is considering closing its Wilmington refinery, this is in Los Angeles, which along with Benicia represents over 14% of California's refining capacity. No final decision has been confirmed for this facility, but they are considering getting rid of that facility as well. So four refineries have shut down or been chased out because of Gavin Newsom, and they are no longer producing any gasoline for people to be able to use. And now they are backing up slowly but surely. Well, maybe we should be a little bit more rational. Maybe we should start producing oil here. Maybe we shouldn't be so tough on refineries. Someone's feeling the heat, and someone knows that if gas does spike up to $6, $7, $8, $9, $10 a gallon by the end of 2025 in California, he can kiss the White House goodbye, because no one is going to elect a president that saw gas prices go up to $10 a gallon while the rest of the country is paying around $3, if not less than $3. So he knows this is political. He's going to play it very, very sneaky and very sly to try and back up and talk about bringing back the, doing his little dance, bringing back the refining capacity, bringing back producing more oil, drilling for more oil, creating those jobs, which, I mean, if it gets that way, great. I think we do have an abundance, obviously, from those numbers, 15 billion barrels of oil. we're sitting on top of, plus 1.8 billion that we know that is out there. That's a lot of oil that we're sitting on. And California could be producing that here, creating great middle class jobs. You could keep an eye on it. You could have workers' protections. You could do all that stuff and create a thriving industry, bring back a thriving middle class here in California, and also make sure that Californians are benefiting from the fact that we produce a ton of oil. So we'll keep an eye on that. He's desperately trying to gaslight us into believing that they're not rising. But we all, you know what they say, don't trust your lying eyes, right? That's what they always say. Don't trust your lying eyes. Gas prices are spiking. They are continuing to go up in California. Gavin Newsom's trying to stop it before it gets too bad.